What are some common sewing mistakes and how you can avoid them if you are a beginner sewer or you are just learning how to sew? Hello everyone, my name is Pamela Azemubo and you are welcome to my YouTube channel. 1. Skipping pre-washing fabric. There might be a little bit of controversy inside of this because sometimes some people say if you wash the fabric, you say that maybe the color might fade off or the fabric might shrink. Now here's the part. Is the thing with it is, let's say you are sewing a fabric now that shrinks, and you've already taken measurements, then the person now decides to wash the clothes before they wear the clothes for the event or wherever it is that they are going to. The fabric still shrinks. It will not look like, oh, you didn't take the measurements properly, or maybe there was a mistake while sewing. So majority of people don't really agree with this particular point, but it is very important that you wash your fabric. But it's not all fabrics that you can do this process with, if I may add as a point. It's not all fabrics you can do with it. There are certain fabrics that you can test, you can go or you can test with this, but certainly not all fabrics. But it is important that you pre-wash your fabric before you actually sew them. 2, not changing needles regularly. Depending on what you've sewn. So you've sewn maybe lace, you've sewn leather, and besides, if you can't even use the same needle you use in sewing leather and sew lace. So you've sewn lace, you've sewn leather. Sometimes these needles end up becoming blunt. So when you want to sew on a actual maybe cotton fabric, you end up seeing like tiny holes, or maybe bigger holes in your sewing stitches, because 1, you don't change your needles regularly when you sew. 3, using the same needle on everything. You can't use the same needle you use to sew leather to sew cotton. Please make it make sense. It doesn't work, and it won't work like that. So you have to change your needles, different needles for different fabrics. The needles that you use in sewing your leather is different from the needles that you use to sew your cotton fabric. So it is very important that you change your needles regularly depending on the kind of fabrics that you sew. I believe there are different needles for different kinds of fabric. If I see them, or if I see a picture of them, I'm just going to leave them up on the screen so that you guys can see it. 4, not ironing your fabric. Why are you not ironing your fabric? Why? Ironing is a very important, or it's very important when you are sewing, because it gives it a cleaner finishing. If you don't iron, seams will not look as relaxed as they should. It's not even be looking like the garment is not properly done and not finished. So you also have to iron these fabrics when you are sewing. With every stitch and every sew, you have to make sure that you iron in every single process, so that when it comes out, the cloth ends up looking very clean and like you literally just bought them. 5, poor measuring and cutting. When your measurements are not done properly, there's no way that the garments are going to be fitted the way you've envisioned it. So it is very important that you learn how to take body measurements properly. If you are just a beginner sewer, you must learn how to take measurement properly, understand the shoulder length, understand shoulder to bust point to bust point, understand this measurement properly before actually collecting clothes from clients. This is very important, because when measurements are not done properly, it most definitely will affect the output or the outcome of that garment. So there are different charts that can teach you different ways you can take the different body measurements. So I'm going to post some of them on the screen so that you guys can see it. And if I may add, if you want me to create a template concerning how to take adequate body measurements and leave it in the link in my bio, please indicate in the comment section. 6, ignoring seam allowance. Why are you ignoring the seam allowance? Who are you giving the seam allowance to? It is very important that you add seam allowance to your sewing, because what if there are issues with the sewing, or there's something wrong and you're trying to adjust it and there's not enough space for you to be able to adjust it? This is the reason why seam allowance is very important. So whatever you are doing, always make sure that you have enough allowance to your blouse, skirt, trouser, or anything you are sewing at all, to give room and error for, will I say, mistakes, to just help you correct mistakes if they are any. 7, not testing on scrap fabric. There might be a little bit of controversy around this, but it's very important that you test on scrap fabric. Some people don't believe in it, but the question is, what if you drafted that pattern and you've now gone to court and you now realize that your patterns are wrong, or maybe there's an error with your pattern somewhere? Now you've already cut on that expensive fabric. What happens then? You're now finding a way to rectify it, or trying a way to get the fabric to be able to rectify the mistake you've made. So this is why it is very important that you test on that scrap fabric. That is the only way you can easily tell that that pattern is wrong, except you are really confident of it. But like I said, there's a little bit of controversy around this, but I believe that testing on scrap fabric is very important. Backstitching at the wrong time. What is backstitching? Backstitching is when you're joining your fabrics, together and you're trying to sew. That beginning part, when you don't properly join them together, that's properly stitch that place like twice, that part ends up losing. Inner sewers, they sew and they don't backstitch. You avoid loss of garments when they are being worn, especially when you are sewing areas like zippers, like pockets. It is very important that you backstitch properly. Overconfidence without practice. I don't think you can become good at anything without constantly doing it all the time. Practice, 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 practice. I say this all the time. I say this to my students all the time. That is the only way you can get good at what you do. You have to constantly be practicing. Practice, practice a lot of times. Even with driving, even with cooking, it's practicing that helps you get better. Because the thing is, you don't want to be selling yourself, and at the end of the day, when people give you clothes to sew, you can't deliver what you've promised them, or you can't deliver according to what you've hyped yourself to be. So that's the only way you can become good at what you do. You have to constantly be practicing. If there are anything that I've mentioned here and you need a proper template or a guide for it, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. In my next video, I'm going to create that template and add it in the link in my bio. Also, please don't forget to subscribe, share, like if you like this video, and I will catch you guys in my next video.